Greetings, beloved Star Child Rising. You are in Christina's Corner, and I'm Christina. Welcome back to the podcast where I have the opportunity and the honor to celebrate and highlight individuals who are out here making a positive impact on our community. So today, super excited to chat with Elena Grande, a truly impressive pro who blends smart communication with a real knack for connecting with people. Elena is currently a communications and media relations specialist. Her career journey is pretty cool, touching on everything from admissions at the renowned Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, better known as RPI, to community activism and even tutoring young students. With her background in public relations, she is natural at getting messages across, creating engaging content, and working with all kinds of people. What really stands out about Elena is how she combines a sharp eye for detail with genuine empathy. She's a creative at heart, even designing websites. She did one of mine. We'll talk about that later. And her insights into facing life's big stuff, like figuring out your career path or dealing with loss, they are really relatable. So today, we're not just talking about work, we're diving into how to truly connect, the power of clear, compassionate communication, and finding strength in just being real. Please help me give a warm welcome to the inspiring Elena Grande. Welcome, Elena.
Hi, I'm glad to be here. Thank
I'm
you for
so
having me on.
I'm so happy to have you here. A lot of great things are happening in your life. I'm excited for you.
Thank you, yes.
So, Elena, on the podcast, I always have six questions. And the first one is always for you to take us back. Take us
Mhm.
back to where you were born. What were you like as a kid? And did you ever have any clues that you would get into communications and all the things that you do?
Of course. Okay. So I'm someone who definitely spends a lot of time, not like waxing poetic about my childhood, but just thinking back to, how I came to be. And I think,
Hmm.
there's nothing I don't believe in. And that's to say that, like, I feel like, it's possible that reincarnation might be a thing. Who knows? I don't know. But I always joke that I was born 50 years old in some ways. And that might be, I'm a Capricorn sun, so I have a lot of
Capricorn.
Saturn placements. So I feel
Hmm.
like, I was always someone as a kid who would really relate to older individuals. Like if I were at a party, I would always gravitate towards the adults as versus children my own age. But I was born in Schenectady, New York, and I went to Niskayuna High School, fairly not small high school, but probably mid-sized. So upstate New York, born and bred. I have an older sister. I have two half siblings from my father's side. And, I've had a pretty simple childhood, I would say, not without its own, growth struggles and things like that. But I'm the younger kid. And I think also sibling order is very much a real thing
Hmm.
in terms of, how we act and how we act not only in the nuclear family but also in the larger family and in any relationships that we have, professional, personal, you name it. And so it's funny because a lot of people think I'm the older sibling when they meet my sister and I for whatever reason, but I am the younger one. And so I was always the family comedian. I loved to get up on the mantle where the fireplace is and like give shows. I loved reading as a child. I still do love reading, but I used to love reading aloud. So, like the Harry Potter books, I would like to do all the different voices. So, I've always been a very animated person who loves to observe. So, I would always be an observer. I'm not sure what part of my chart that is associated with per se, but maybe it's my Scorpio moon. But I am very keen in observing people and their mannerisms and the little quirks they have and their little neuroses. And I would be at the dinner table at like a Thanksgiving dinner and I would imitate like my Uncle Josh or something. And it'd be something so specific that people would be like, oh
Right.
my God, he does that all the time. Like, how did you, like people would like get a kick out of it. So I love making people laugh. I would like to say I like, I make myself laugh a lot, which is important. And so I would say my role my natural role growing up was to be the comedian, not just in my family, but also amongst my friends. I had undiagnosed ADHD for like the earlier part of my life, and then I was diagnosed in about sixth grade because my mom is a social worker, so she's very familiar with the diagnosis, and she's like, "You definitely have it. You're very smart, but you're just not applying yourself, and you're very hyperactive." So once I got that diagnosis, my life kind of took a 180, and I was able to really apply myself in school. I did well all throughout high school, did well throughout college, and now as an adult, I'm facing challenges in my own way with the disorder, but I find it to be a superpower and a crux in some ways.
Hmm.
But for the most part, I've made it work for me. And we always like to think what would have happened if we took this path versus the path that we did take. And I try to remind myself that the universe has its way of doing things, and we can't really spend too much time questioning it, or else we'll drive ourselves crazy.
Hmm.
So I don't regret anything really. I'm just, happy to still be alive. Um, I feel like I have a greater purpose. I don't know what that is. I don't know if we're ever meant to know what that is. But I'm happy to continue to occupy space in this world and in this universe and in this lifetime. And yeah, so that's my where I began
Okay.
storyline.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. As you were sharing this story, I was trying to um, envision you as someone who was kind of like laughing all the time and cutting up because you do come across, in a very Capricornian, serious way.
Yeah.
Um, so
Uh,
it's hard for me to see you that way, but I know just studying astrology so long that Capricorns, they always seem older than their years. But
mhm.
as you get older, you become more childlike. You'll start to find that. Yeah.
That's
So,
what I've heard too, kind of age in reverse. I've been
yeah.
known to hear that, which I'm fine with.
Yeah.
Hopefully my
Yeah.
skincare routine will maintain what and my father's genetics.
Yeah,
Yeah, no. And I also
absolutely.
think too, as like we get older and more life experiences happen to us, and we get hardened sometimes by either personal experiences or things that we've been privy to. Like sometimes that inner child, as we know, gets hushed and like isn't as apparent because we're more conscious of ourselves than we were when we were
Yeah.
children.
Yeah.
So I think that's also part of it, but it also does
Yeah.
depend on like what season I'm in my life, where
Yeah.
like sometimes, or who I'm with, I feel free to express myself however
Yeah.
that may be. And then
Yeah.
sometimes I know it's like code switching almost, which everyone's very
Mm-hmm.
familiar with. It's like, sometimes we mask, especially, I feel like not to go off on a tangent, but I feel like any person of any sort of minority, whether it be a woman, person of color, whether it be, anyone of a different sexuality than heterosexual, like I feel like there's a sort of degree of masking that we all do in society.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever you're able to take that mask off, whenever you're able to be your most
Mm-hmm.
comfortable, authentic self, it's such a
Mm-hmm.
relief. But in this society, we do a lot of masking. And so I think it's funny to hear some people be like, oh, I think you're more this way. And then
Mm-hmm.
another person will say a completely different, description of you. So
Yeah.
just one of those little quirks of life. But
Yeah. And you communicate in so many different ways. I mean, you're in communications and you
yes.
also, we'll talk about your blogging in a minute too, but it's another way to, express yourself as well in a very healthy way. So, but thank you for sharing. That was really interesting. All right. Number two. So you've been involved in coordinating some pretty big projects, whether it was handling admissions at RPI or helping to resolve conflicts at Burns and McDonnell. Was there a specific, Elena, aha moment or a big turning point in one of those roles where something just clicked for you about how powerful clear communication or genuine connection can be and how that changed how you approached your work?
Yes. I would say specifically with my last position, which was being an admissions counselor at RPI. So
Hmm.
my territory, funnily enough, is New Jersey, where Christina currently lives. Um, I so I guess I knew from a young age that I was very good at connecting with people. It was just a natural thing that I had where I was able to find common ground with just about anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And in this position, I realized just how effective that can be and how it's not something that can be taught necessarily and not something that everyone possesses. And I think people were starting to realize that about me in this role. And that can be very gratifying and very um, it just makes you realize that that's something, a skill that you have when you might not necessarily
Mm-hmm.
know it yourself because it just comes so naturally. But part of the role of being an admissions counselor is that you do have to make these connections with these prospective students, but also with their families because, their families are the ones usually paying for their kids to come to this college.
Right.
I remember having to learn a lot about RPI, and RPI is a polytechnic school. So I'm someone who's more of the humanities and like social sciences kind of person writing English. So it was definitely a little bit of a learning curve in terms of learning what we stand for as an institution or what, RPI stood for. And I had a father as an engineer. So in some ways, it made me feel closer to him as well. But there were a lot of times where I had to deal with a lot of nervous parents. And these were a lot of immigrant families. And so they themselves, the parents, didn't go to school in the United States, so there was a lot of unknown.
Mm.
And I think a lot of course, as we know, a lot of the unknown can create anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I was fielding questions left and right, but it made me able to prove to myself that I did know a lot about RPI, and I was able to kind of, for lack of a better word, sell it to these families and to these students. And I just remember during our reading season when we would read applications, some of them would really stand out to me. And we would get into this habit of sending out handwritten letters to these students about how their application like stood out to us. And now that everything's become so digitalized and automated, that part of the admissions or application process has gotten less personal. And so this is our way of still like being personal. And I know
Mm-hmm.
that if I were a student and I got a handwritten letter from an admissions counselor, that may make me think twice about a school.
Yeah.
And so I did get quite a few emails from these students who I'd sent letters to saying how that completely changed their whole
Oh,
day,
wow.
really meant a lot to them. I've had
Mm-hmm.
students be like, "Oh my God," like if I met like a junior or sophomore, they'd be like, will you still be there when I'm applying as a senior?" Just like these connections that I make with family and like really making them feel seen and heard and valued. Um, is really gratifying for you as a person. It's like not something that's tangible per se, but it's something that really sticks with you. And I think that was where I really learned that, just having the ability to communicate with people and really listen. Like listening is a lost art, I think,
Mm-hmm.
especially in this day and age where our attention spans are so short. And I can be, guilty of that at some points, but just being there and hearing someone out and making them feel like they're the only person in that moment that needs to be concerned about is so valuable. And so I feel like I chase that feeling. It's almost like, I don't want to say a high, it makes it sound like bad, but it's a feeling that I want to get out of my work, whatever that may be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the funny thing is that you can find it in so many ways. It doesn't even have to be like your job necessarily. You can find it in just the weird interaction with someone at a coffee shop, or like I think we just have to like tune ourselves into that more. But in terms of professionally, I definitely would say that my job as an admissions counselor really made that apparent to me that my gift of communicating can be wielded for really good things. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You are really, really good at that, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But isn't it amazing how the universe kind of puts you into the situations and experiences that you need in order to take you to the next step?
mm-hmm.
It kind of guides you to where you need and what you need to get you to be successful on your journey. So, yeah.
Yeah,
And
and
that
it's always
that
hindsight is 2020 because you
yeah.
don't realize it until after, and you're like, wow, that was really good for me, even though it really may have sucked or was really hard in the middle of it. You come out stronger and just have more character as a result of it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. So one of the things I know that, in your Capricornian way, you're very much a hard worker. You work really hard at what you do. And when I went onto your website, I loved reading your blogs on your website. Your personal writing online is so honest about common struggles like feeling unsure about your career, being vulnerable to write about that, or even dealing with the loss, um, like of your dad recently.
Mhm.
My condolences and rest in
Thank
peace.
you. Yeah.
And you're also a strong advocate for equity, which I love. So, how does having that deep personal understanding of human experiences and being able to write about them help you in your professional roles, especially when you're communicating with all sorts of people and
Mhm.
trying to make sure everyone feels understood and on the same page?
Well, thank you, first of all, for complimenting my writing. It
Yeah.
is not only a way for me to express myself, but I feel like it's also its own kind of therapy. And like I've said earlier in the podcast episode, I really love reading and I loved reading growing up. And I think a lot of that helped me become the writer that I am.
Hmm.
We learn by being exposed to these things. And so I shout out to my mother for showing me that reading is good. But I would say that being vulnerable is something, again, I don't want to say it's a lost art, but it's definitely something that a lot of people aren't comfortable doing. But if you
Hmm.
notice, even in the most minute of interactions, like just person to person, when you allow yourself to be vulnerable in concert with somebody else, then that person feels comfortable to be vulnerable as well. And I think there is a lot of goodness in that, and it makes the person feel comfortable to let their guard down and just kind of, you know, relieve themselves of maybe some of the trauma or some of the struggles that have been weighing heavily on them because they didn't feel a safe space to relinquish that control um, themselves. So I feel like, sometimes I know we ourselves will catch ourselves reading something and we'll be like, oh my God, I'm so glad this person said that because I thought I was alone in thinking this. And
Hmm.
one of the good things about the internet is that it makes us realize that we as humans, there's no such thing as having an original thought. We've all there is at least maybe 5, 10, 15,000, 100,000 people who have had that same thought, experience, what have you. And I think there's some beauty in that, and that's a way of kind of making community. So I believe by expressing, my vulnerabilities about, coming out of college and not having a job straight away, still not necessarily being in maybe the field that I think I'm going to really flourish in or want to be in. I think it's better not to hide that and to be honest about that because there's somebody sitting in their room somewhere thinking, oh my God, I'm not where I'm supposed to be yet. This is the end of the world. My friend's doing this, my other friend's doing that. If they come across and read that, they're like, okay, someone who I thought really had it all together is also having these thoughts and feelings. So I think vulnerability is the key here, and that by being vulnerable in my writing, I feel like I can hopefully make someone else, even if I don't know it and no one ever tells me, at least, know that maybe it reaches someone and it changes their outlook on
Hmm.
something. And so my mom's always like, you're such a good writer, you should write more. And so that also helped. But it has been really helpful now that I'm, 28, beginning my Saturn return, have had some events happen in my life that have triggered, the need to want to write these things. But um, it really helps me work through those emotions that kind of don't have anywhere else to go. So I think
Hmm.
it's been really cathartic in that way.
Yeah. What I love about it also is, not just the vulnerability, but the vulnerability that you show on your professional website page. That's so
Yeah.
kick-ass leading
Thank you.
edge. Like, this is who I am. This is who I am. Talk about authenticity. So many um websites, professional websites, they look so boring.
Yeah. I get
It's
it.
like like they're not making it, they're perfect. You
Hmm.
want to, book this person because they're perfect. And
Hmm.
you show all different sides of yourself and you're also vulnerable. And that I just think is so progressive and so
Oh,
leading
thank
edge. And I love that you do that. Yeah.
you. See, it's funny because it's like for me, it's just me. I feel like,
Mm-hmm.
like it's not like, and I like hearing that you enjoyed that part. I feel that that's something I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't even thinking about, because,
Mm-hmm.
and that's again another reason why I think maybe I'm not made for like a conventional occupation because I can't stand that. And unfortunately, like again, it's a very systemic thing that like people feel the need to be so professional they can't be themselves. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I've never really wanted or felt comfortable subscribing to that. So again, maybe that's Sagittarius placements in me,
Yeah,
but
yeah, 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 yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
I do appreciate you saying that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I love that. I love that. Okay. Number 4, as a PR pro and even a freelance website designer, you're clearly great at telling stories and reaching people online. So for those of you who are watching, Elena built my astrology website. And I want to tell you, Elena, that I love my website so much that I sometimes just go on there to look at it. Um, but it's not about just about your talent. It's about how good you are at building trust and at meeting people where they are. I remember when we first met and we were talking about the website, I was trying to articulate my vision. And at first you were talking really quickly and I, um, stopped and said, I don't know a damn thing. I can barely turn my laptop on. And you just took it back and were patient with me and such a great listener. You were so patient and you let my vision lead while you paid close attention to how I was trying to articulate it.
Mhm.
Um, how do you use your creative talents and your savvy with platforms like Instagram or Squarespace to build communities, to get people excited, like you
Mhm.
did me, or even to smooth things over in your jobs? And where do you
Yeah.
feel your creative side and your more organized administrative side really come together?
Well, I would say again, it happened with my last job at RPI. I was tasked kind of unofficially, the communications person we had left, and so it kind of fell upon me in this great way. And I found that's happened a lot with me throughout my life that these things fall upon me, and I get to like kind of seize them and go forth. But I was tasked with managing the social media account for the admissions Instagram. And this was a
Mm.
big year for us to like make our class numbers. So we really wanted to yield like, I think it was like 1350 students. And so we tried to make a better effort at reaching this generation of kids where they are. And so with Gen Z, it's usually TikTok, it's Instagram. Um, so I had a lot of fun working closely with the student ambassadors. So these are RPI students who do they're tour guides for us, and they do events for us. So I was able to really connect with them on like a more personal level and create content for our social media. And so I had so much fun like making videos and doing trends and things like that. And it got them excited. It got the students excited. They were like volunteering to be in my videos. They wanted to like be
It's
like,
great.
Elena, can I do it? Can I submit this? Can I do that? To the point where like it was just so fun for me, not only because it was fun to create the content and like use my creativity in that way, but also it was fun to be able to connect with these young students who have so much life in them, so much opportunities ahead of them. That's why I think like intergenerational friendships are so important because
Mm-hmm.
we can learn so much not only from, wise people who are older than us, but also younger people who are taking different paths than we did maybe at their age,
Mm-hmm.
but also have so much to offer us in terms of lessons. And so I think being able to have that creative side in my job is something that is necessary for me to really be successful. And so now in my current job, I mentioned I am an executive assistant for the operating officer and the programs officer at a federally qualified healthcare center. And so a lot of that is administration. It's very serious. You need to have meeting minutes for every single meeting that occurs, which is a lot. Deadlines are really important, keeping calendars organized, what have you. So there's a lot of admin that goes on with that. And the Capricorn in me loves that.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me feel really in control. And I love having like an end result and knowing that like things get done, being on a schedule. Um, but then also having the opportunity to maybe branch out to the communication sides of things for the organization is something that is very tantalizing to me as well, because not only will I be able to be organized, but I'll also be able to have that like community outreach aspect of the job as well. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it mirrors the two sides of me really perfectly, the Sag rising and the Capricorn sun. For Capricorn sun, I get to have the admin, the organization. Sag rising, I get to be out communicating with all types of people.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that has been my lesson in my career, is that whatever job I have needs to have a good marriage of those two qualities. So
Mm-hmm. And then also your Scorpio moon, because I have one too.
yes.
It really encourages you to dig deep into,
hmm
what is important here? How do I get to know this person well enough to be able to get to where they want to go,
hmm
or be able to, express their vision like you did with me, so
Well, and I think
masterfully.
that's what's so helpful about having a Scorpio moon is like some
Mm-hmm.
people, sometimes I'm like, oh God, it's my Achilles heel. I feel too deeply. But then other times I'm like, wow, this is a superpower. I have such
Mm-hmm.
good intuition about
Mm-hmm.
people, not only just like, oh, if they're good or bad, not that, more in the sense of like, oh, this person's really not feeling well today. And like, they don't say anything. It's just in this vibe you get. So I think, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
yes, meeting people where they are, the
Mm-hmm.
Scorpio moon really helps that, because it's almost like not we can see through people, but it's almost like, okay, like I think I know how to gauge this situation and how I need to approach this person on this given day in the given state they're in now. And I think that is so helpful in the field of communications and just in any job, in any situation in general. And so I am very thankful that I've been able to learn how to utilize that,
Mm-hmm.
and more throughout my life,
Mm-hmm.
in any kind of way.
Very cool. I'm loving this conversation.
Two Scorpio moons.
Yeah. All right. So, number 5, you've written openly about that feeling of not being where you want to be
Mhm.
career-wise, and those self-imposed mental prisons we can get stuck in. For someone who's gone through that and now helps others through communication and support, what's your go-to strategy for breaking free from those limiting beliefs yourself? And how do you use that insight to help the people you encounter in your work, whether they're students trying to find their path or
Mhm.
community members that are seeking help?
So I want to say, and it's changed because I do want to say those self-imposed mental prisons definitely still happen. But the awareness that one gains, whether it
Mm-hmm.
be through life experience and through age, it almost is an overnight change. Like, I think, I don't know, I woke up at one point after turning 28 and I was like, I don't really care what people think as much anymore. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
still care what people think, and that, like, I need to present myself properly. And, you know, I do care what people think if I care about them myself, but you kind of lose the need to perform like you did in your younger 20s or you did in your
Mm-hmm.
teenage years. And it's a very freeing feeling. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I guess in terms of like finding ways to break free of that mentality of like, oh, I'm never going to amount to anything, or oh, I'm like way far behind than I should be. Um, I think a great thing is to be intentional and, again, self-awareness. Self-awareness is something that's not taught. It's kind of well, one, it can be a gift that some people possess, but also is something that is acquired through life experience and through doing the hard work that some people are not willing to do. And so I'll be very transparent in saying that I've gone through 6+ years of therapy. I'm still in it actively. I've tried medications. I've tried, I've done everything. I've done yoga. Um, and I found that like there is not one toolkit that works for everyone. And to be honest with yourself about that, like, okay, yeah, yoga seems great and I love it personally, but it's not for everyone.
Hmm.
But I do really believe in trying things and trying to see if that shoe fits you when it comes to self care, when it comes to recentering yourself. But I found personally for me, writing affirmations, um, or writing 3 things you're thankful for in the morning. I need to get back on this habit. 3 things I'm thankful for in the morning, 3 things I'm looking forward to happening that particular day, and then on the evening I'll say 3 things I'm glad happened that day. And sometimes you'll be like, well, I just live an ordinary life, like how am I going to fill these pages? But then it reminds you to really find the beauty in the ordinary, and the the fact that just waking up, having an able body, breathing clearly, having your mother, having your family, having your what have you, it reminds you that those small, maybe insignificant things are actually very significant, or what keep us going every day. So I would say that that is my biggest tool and something that I need to get back into doing. I think once I moved, I kind of like let go of some of my healthy habits. Um,
Hmm.
but I think it's really important to be honest with yourself and know when to put the phone down, know when to maybe pick up a book instead, know when something is harming you rather than helping you. Um, and so I would say my advice to everyone who's come to me with those kinds of issues is do the hard work and don't be afraid. I think Denzel Washington said it in a convocation speech for Yale Law School or some school. I think it was, no, it was University of Pennsylvania. He said, "Don't be afraid to fail forward," and I think that's huge. And like I love that saying. I think someone said it before him, but failing forward is so important because it teaches us so much about ourselves.
Hmm.
And so I'm not afraid to fail anymore. I've done it a lot. If anything, I think it's made me more relatable, and I have more depth. I think we all have more depth when we push ourselves to go outside of that comfort zone. And, you know, if you fail, at least you're still standing and
Hmm.
it doesn't work. And then you don't have to, get to a certain age where you're incapable of trying new things and say, oh, I wish I did XYZ, because you did it. And so I think that's the biggest advice is just fail forward and don't be afraid to get uncomfortable and just be honest with yourself.
That's such great advice. I was sitting here trying to think of where I was at when I was 28 and nowhere near that self-aware. So,
Well, because I'm 50. Well, I was born 50, remember? So now how old am I now? 88? No, I'm kidding. No, I guess 78. I was never good at math.
but I think too, even my daughter who just turned 20, her self-awareness, I'm so impressed with, like with the youth that is coming up now.
Yeah,
They are a lot more self-aware than we were back in the day, and I love seeing that. I
me
love
too.
seeing that, and that's why I feel like it's so very important in education to like really give the voice to students and
Yeah,
really see them, as you said earlier, as mentors.
yeah.
I've always said that if you don't have a mentor that's under 30, you're really
Hmm.
not doing yourself justice.
Well, it's funny you say that. I wrote a paper on the pedagogy of the oppressed, which is a Paulo Freire, is like a psychologist, I want to say, but he wrote about that. He
Hmm.
wrote about like in the classroom, like what do you believe? Like I can't. There was also like the banking concept of education, where it's basically like, okay, like is it only up to the teacher to teach, or can the student teach as well? And
Right.
I think it speaks to what you're saying,
It's a
that like we can
reciprocal.
learn so much
Yeah.
from the students as well. And I feel like every great teacher I ever had gave space to us to
Hmm.
teach them something.
Right.
And so I think those are the teachers you remember. And so
Hmm.
I think it's true. And it's like that's in any situation in life. Like it can't just be coming from one side. It should
Yep.
always be a continuous conversation where everyone's contributing and we're all listening just a
Hmm.
little bit better.
Yep.
So
Yep. Yep.
yeah.
I love that. Thank you. All right. Final question.
Hmm.
So, in your current role in communications, media, it demands, as you said before, a lot of organization and keeps you in high pressure situations. Given how deeply you reflect on life's ups and downs, what are your personal non negotiables for self care to stay energized, keep your cool, and keep doing such impactful work without burning out?
Yes, and I want to be again fully transparent. I have moments where I'm like, I am on the verge of burning out.
Mm,
But I would say a number one for me is physical exertion. I need to be able to go to the gym at least 4 times a week. I usually like some combination of strength training. I've been doing Pilates now at least once a week, a little bit of yoga, but any sort of way to like move my body. And walks are really good for me to clear my head and kind of think through things maybe that like stressed me out before. So I'd say exercise, reading, writing, like you see in those blogs. But I always like to say not to pressure myself to write. So I'm not the kind of person that's like, sit down and write. Like it needs to happen to me. Like I need to feel passionate and like I need to pursue it. So I would say that, and I would also say fun shows. Just little things like that. Like I can be pretty simple when it comes to relaxing and taking care of myself. And also just making sure I eat good food and I nourish my body. Um, I need to kick the caffeine habit a little bit, but I don't drink very much, if at all, because I know what's best for me and like how I feel. Um, and just listening to my body because I think it's so important. There's often so much disconnect between our minds and our bodies, and I think the more we listen and the more we're intentional with that, just the better we're off. So I would say
mhm.
those are probably my non-negotiables with um, staying sane um, and
As
sleep,
a,
of course.
I was going to ask you about that. Two things. So as someone who, has that Capricornian workaholic thing about them,
Mm,
is it easy or do you feel guilty if you need to take a day or two off? Is it easy for you to
guilt.
do that? You feel guilt?
Very guilt. So like Sundays are supposed to be the day of rest. So I usually give myself like an hour maybe to be on the couch. But then I'm like, I have to cook my lunches for the week, my dinners for the week. I need to make sure the bathroom's cleaned. I have to go grocery shopping. Like always finding other ways to like get up and go and do something else.
Hmm.
But so I do find it hard sometimes to say, all right, you need to stop, you need to relax, have some time to yourself, because that is so important. And sleep has never come very naturally to me. I've always had problems with my sleep. So I think part of my, goal for myself, my long-term goal is kind of work figuring that out. But also giving myself compassion and grace to take a day off from the gym, take a day off from chores and tasks, and remember there's always another day. We're fortunate enough typically to always have another day. So just kind of be more honest with myself in what I need in that moment and honor that need instead of just trying to
Hmm.
constantly get things done for the sake of getting things done. So,
Very cool. I so enjoyed this conversation. Kind of sorry I only had 6 questions, but we can do it
oh, no,
again.
of course.
So those who are listening, I can put your information on the video description if somebody wants to get
Yes.
in touch with you. And until the next episode of Christina's Corner podcast, be well, love and light to you. Bye bye.